Welcome, everyone. It's the Crypto Lark. Very excited to have on today Kevin from EOS New York. They are currently the 17th biggest block producer in the EOS ecosystem, and they've been all over the show. We're actually going to start off with Kevin. How's it going?
Oh man, it's never a dull day in EOS land. It's going pretty good. The chain is going, blocks are flowing, and we're producing. So that's all we can ask for.
You know, you were telling me just before we started the interview here that EOS New York in the past sort of 24 hours, you guys have been all over the place in terms of rankings. You know, you've been up and down and all over the place. And that's, as someone, who's running a block producer, and that's got to be kind of stressful at times. Like, oh man, what if we get out of the top 21? Does our economics work? We keep paying the staff and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, we have to maintain very, very disciplined financials at a block producer because it's so unpredictable. You really have no idea. But for anyone that doesn't know, so there are 21 top block producers. These are the elected organizations that have the privilege to assemble transactions into blocks and then broadcast them out to all of the validating nodes. And there are thousands of validating nodes on EOS, not just the block producers. And then every 60 seconds, those votes are retallied. So by the end of this conversation, we may have lost our jobs, but and so every morning I wake up at 6:30 in the morning with my daughter. I check the rankings and I go, okay, I have a job today. But actually,
crypto land, man, things happen fast.
Yeah, you don't have to close the doors. It's just you get a revenue bonus by producing blocks. So pay is actually broken up 75% by how many votes you have, and then there's a 25% goes to block pay. And what that actually ends up being is that when the difference between 21 to 22 is about a 50% cut in revenue. So if you hover around that, trying to forecast the cost of your business is very difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine. So the 21 block producers get the lion's share of the reward, but there's I think a total of 100 is it on the list, and the other 79 or whatever it is get a little portion.
Yeah, so the rule is that you have to have enough votes to earn yourself a minimum of 100 EOS. And because block producer rewards are 1% of the total supply, and the minimum required to get paid at all is to warrant 100 EOS per day, the number of paid nodes will increase over time, right? Because 1% compounding, 1% this year is less than what 1% is next year, is less than the next year. So you actually require fewer and fewer votes in order to hit that 100 threshold. So when we started, it was something like in the 60s when we launched. And right now, 91 paid nodes. So those are standby nodes, and basically they're paid to run redundant infrastructure so that at any given moment they could jump into the top 21, or someone in the top 21 can no longer produce for whatever reason. And it's ever shifting. It's pretty crazy.
I can imagine. So how do you get people to vote for you? I mean, there's no regular election process, right? People are voting 24 hours a day. They move their votes around and they can just do that in a flash. And so how do you kind of maintain that communication with the community where you say like, hey guys, we'd really appreciate your vote?
Yeah. Well, that's my entire job. So I'm the non-technical member of the EOS New York team, and we have engineers and developers that are just producing. And then my job is to let everybody know about it. And also I do a lot of, EOS governance strategy proposals and helping, do what I can to help guide the community as much as possible. But before we started, there was a person that said, someone asked this guy in a chat room, how do you become a block producer? And his response stuck with me forever, which was, run the EOS software and convince the world to vote for you. That's pretty much it. So we were the first block producer in the Western Hemisphere to announce our candidacy in January of 2018. And we were elected when the network launched. We launched in, I can't remember, but it was in the top 21. And we have been in the top 21 and never missed a round of production since. And we're very, very thankful for that. the way that we do it is we just don't stop. We focus on building the most scalable, impactful things that we can. We reinvest a lot of our rewards back into the network itself. We upgrade our servers, our infrastructure. We build open source tooling for the community, for developers. There's DX and there's UX, right? There's developer experience and user experience, and we focus on both. Really, it's just, what have you done for me lately? And how many places are you talking about it? Twitter, STEEMIT, Medium, direct email, Telegram, WeChat. We have to translate it into Chinese, Korean, Spanish, Russian. It doesn't stop. And the most difficult thing is that there isn't a direct feedback loop most of the time. So my background is in marketing and communications, and I got into cryptocurrency because, probably the same reason we all got into it, which was, we need something to change the world. And when I read the EOS white paper and I saw the idea of a block producer, I was like, that's going to be really, really hard. You're going to talk to a global audience of token holders that you don't know. You may not speak their language. You don't know if they're listening to you. There's no way to directly talk to them. The only feedback you have is after it could possibly be too late, is you're just out of the rankings, and you'll never know why.
Yeah.
It'd drive anyone insane. But we just don't stop. Just do your thing.
You just have to do your thing. And EOS New York's been doing a lot of cool stuff. I mean, you guys, just as one example, and we're going to talk about a lot of different things today in EOS, but just as one example, I mean, you guys came out with the Metro Hardware Wallet. So this is an EOS-specific hardware wallet, and that was something you guys developed.
Yeah, so we're developing that now. We're actually going through the manufacturing, and we're having it manufactured in the United States, and it's secure supply chain and all that. But this is the cool thing about EOS and the fact that there are block producers that are directly accountable to the stakeholders, right? So in proof of work, you have the validator, or not the validators, but you the people producing the blocks that aren't necessarily beholden to stakeholders, right? They don't have to wake up every day and check rankings or ask people to vote.
No, a Bitcoin miner, they just mine Bitcoin and that's it. They don't care about anything else. All they do is process transactions and take a fee for it.
Right. And they need to reinvest back into their own infrastructure in order to remain competitive. So there is that. That is a very important dynamic. For a block producer, what we have to do is also say we're reinvesting back in the ecosystem. Like, we're getting paid, yeah, but we're taking the lion's share of that, and we're building things to make this whole blockchain and this whole ecosystem more valuable. So we saw that there was a gap in, we concentrate on user experience all the time, because if someone can't use what you build, it doesn't matter. We looked at the ledger. The ledger is very secure. It's very popular, but it's generalist. It's cross-chain. It does a lot of things well, but it doesn't do a lot of things in EOS well. So we said, all right, screw it. We know how to build our own. So we started to do that. And we've been building it in-house over the past 6 months. It will be 100% open source. The hardware, the software, everything. It doesn't require any software to run. And we aim to make it the easiest to use hardware wallet for EOS. Plug it in, 10 minutes later, you're playing with dApps. Done. Nice.
It's got to be easy. This is one of the big things, is that if we don't have that good user experience, we're not going to get millions of people using dApps. We're just not. But once we get that, we will. And I think EOS has been making massive strides towards trying to make that a reality. And we'll talk about the Rex next, because that was quite an interesting development in the overall EOS ecosystems. Obviously, as anyone who's been looking at EOS for a while has recognized, this has been a problem. Resources on the network have been challenging in one way or another, whether it be for developers or for small EOS holders that want to play dApps a lot or whatever it might have been. More problematic at the start, has grown less problematic over time, but now with the resource exchange, this is just taking it to the whole next level. So you can tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, well, there's two tracks, right? One is the blockchain has been resources on distributed networks are scarce. Okay, fact number one. Fact number two is that since launch, the block producers and the software have optimized their computational abilities by 90%. They've improved 90%. So what I mean by that is when you broadcast a transaction, how much that actually costs, which is CPU time, like how much it costs to compute. You don't actually burn tokens, you don't burn resources, but we'll get in like the token model later. That's improved by 90%. And then you have this other problem which led to Rex. And this is a little bit in the weeds. This is a little detailed. So in EOS, you can vote for block producers, and you can also claim distributed resources, which are CPU, networking bandwidth, and RAM is different, but CPU networking bandwidth. So what happened is some people were voting, and the software goes, okay, you're voting. Well, you also claim these resources, but they may not have been using those resources. So what's happening is we're encouraging people to vote. Not everybody is a developer who's building a DApp or deploying smart contracts that require these resources, and so it was inefficient allocation of resources, leaving a lot of unused, and the network thinks it needs to create room for resources that just aren't going to be necessary. So Rex was devised by Dan Larimer last year around maybe August, and the idea is to decouple voting from claiming resources, and also to create a marketplace where these resources could be borrowed for a fraction of the cost. So what the result was when Rex was released was that the cost of development resources for 30 days dropped 99.96%.
Wow.
So you can get over 3,000 EOS worth of distributed resources on chain for one EOS. Before, that was a big problem. You would have had to go purchase if you needed 3,000 EOS worth of resources, you got to go buy it. And right now it's $20,000. Right now it costs you $6.
That's just a scale of improvement beyond belief, and it's really about using the resources in the network more efficiently. Because just, as an example, if I had 1,000 EOS sitting there and I was only making 1 or 2 posts a day on a DApp, I'm using almost nothing in terms of my available resources, and it's just sitting idle. Whereas, like you said, then you get some small game developer who wants to launch a DApp, and they're just like, oh man, I need $25,000 just to get the requisite stuff. I don't have that money. Like, how am I going to do that? So I think it just kicks the door open for more developers to come in, and of course for people who are just holding and aren't using the resources to gain even just a tiny little percentage in their holdings.
Right, because those fees are redistributed back to the people who participate in Rex, which, by the way, I don't know if we said it before, but it stands for Resource Exchange. And also there are system fees too. So the blockchain incurs fees when you engage with it via buying short names, which are like premium account names. So someone bought .com for 150,000 EOS when it was $15 each last year, right? So that was a massive amount of money. And what you can do is create an account that's like cryptolark.com. It's very easy to remember. So on EOS, you have these human readable account names instead of a 55, 51 character string or however long it is in any other network, which are difficult to remember. So that's just another thing in the user experience story that EOS is trying to weave. And that's kind of where the whole community is focused, is making this stuff easy and abstracting away a lot of the blockchain stuff away from the user as much as they want. If they want to get all into it and be a power user, power to you.
That's right. But most people realistically just want to have fun. They want to play a game. Maybe they want to make some money while playing that game via, token models or whatever. All the intricacies of how the blockchain works and all this thing, it's beyond most people. And we're the nerdy crowd here who go, ooh, blockchain, right, this is really exciting. But the reality is most people will care about blockchain underlying their games or whatever decentralized applications they might be using in the future as much as they care about what underlies Facebook or what underlies Twitter. They have no idea. They just know that it works. And that's
people take the path of least resistance. And, there's a really cool company that's based in South Korea and ITAM Games. And they are building mobile games where the items are non-fungible tokens that exist on EOS. And there's some other components that exist on the blockchain. But they actually allow you to create an account with an email address. And then with that email address, they'll on the back end, they're keeping a table that matches a public key with that email. So you are engaging with them through the email, and then they engage through the key that you've authorized them to be the custodian of with the blockchain. Now, at any time, you can say, all right, I'm done using you as a middleman. I want my keys. I want to be my own sovereign controller of my blockchain-based assets. Give me my key. Mm-hmm. And in EOS, the key is actually the account. It's the account name is what matters. Keys are just an abstraction around the account name. So you can actually update the key then, right? So you have your email. You say, I want my normal EOS account, and you get it. You change the key to whatever you want, and now ITAM Games can't possibly get back into it. And this is the giving the user the power of choice of how complicated do you want this to be. Mm-hmm. But no matter how complicated you want it to be, you're going to get the benefits of decentralization, non-fungible tokens, owning your in-game assets, or whatever it is that you're engaging with on the EOS blockchain. It's pretty cool.
It is very cool. I mean, it's just this whole revolution in terms of how we conduct business, how we understand our data, all these different things. And of course, so many other ideas are coming through, like governance and different things like this that are EOS has been working through for quite a time. And obviously, being one of the block producers, you've been right at the forefront of governance and governance issues within the EOS blockchain. So what do you see as kind of being the biggest issues around EOS today? Do you see governance as still being an issue? And if so, to what extent?
Yeah, governance is always an issue because these are just voting machines. Blockchains are just voting machines, and we need to figure out how we coordinate amongst ourselves to vote. Governance, in my opinion, is just the collective decisions we make, the mechanisms which we use to make those decisions, and the methods we use to enforce them. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's what governance is. So it's not like it's not like how the EOS governance talk started. So if anyone is listening, they know about the history of like ECAF and the interim constitution, all that arbitration. That's not what governance is. It's just making decisions and enforcing the decisions. Mm-hmm. Okay. And in EOS governance, there's two mechanisms to achieve a decision. It's the token holder voting for a block producer, and it's the block producer voting using their active key or whatever key in the system contracts. And that can affect change on chain. And there are many other ways that we help we help block producers make decisions too, right? There's referendum, mm-hmm. which is this layer 2 solution where token holders can actually vote with their tokens on binary choice topics. Should we, for example, EOS just had probably the largest token burn in terms of value.
It was like 34 million EOS, which at current rates would be about 150 million US dollars or approximately.
$150 million removed from the supply, and we came to consensus as a blockchain to do that like that. The speed at which EOS governance is evolving is so rapid it'll break your neck, and so that's why it's my full-time job. The interim constitution and all that stuff that started with EOS has been replaced. It was replaced with the EOS user agreement. I was the primary author of that, and then it was approved by 21 block producers. And then at any point, remember, token holders, if the criticism is block producers are making these decisions, well, token holders put them there. So mm-hmm. if they don't like it, say goodbye. Every 60 seconds, the rankings of all the block producers are the perfect reflection of the collective sentiment of all token holders on the planet. Every 60 seconds.
That's tough. Regular politicians, they have like 3 or 4 year cycles. Every 60 seconds, you have to be constantly on your toes, constantly saying, "Hey, we're out here. We're advocating for EOS. We're delivering for EOS, and all this stuff." And it's really an amazing blockchain when you start to break it down. You understand all the stuff going on, and I'm not super involved in the ecosystem. I use a couple. I've got Karma on my phone, and I think I've downloaded Sense as well, but I haven't
Karma's
actually
really
used it
cool.
yet. Yeah, Karma is very
Yeah,
cool, and
Instagram videos.
and I've got my EOS, and I've voted for the block producers and all that fun stuff, right? But I don't have any giant amounts, and I don't spend a lot of time on the ecosystem. I spend most of my time making videos about cryptocurrencies on the internet. But every time that I do like a proper news update video, and I come in and look and see kind of really dive in what's going on in EOS, I'm just blown away because there's always so much happening. Like the ecosystem itself is just really exploding in terms of what's going on. There's so many different ideas being brought forward, so many different things being explored, so many different implementations of EOS. And we were talking about we have like Telos and Warbly and all these different things going on. So it's kind of crazy to see how much is happening in EOS in any given day.
Yeah, and there's a couple reasons for that, and one of the big reasons is that that accountability of block producers who are paid through an expansion of the token supply. We call it inflation, although I think it's kind of a misnomer. It's not like really inflation, but we just call it that. So block producers are paid through inflation, and because many of them sort of walk on quicksand, right? They aren't secure in their position. They have to continuously say, like, here's what I've done lately, and they're constantly building huge improvements, not just in the core software and the infrastructure, but just in user tools. A block producer candidate built a tax tool, eostax.io. Just, it's free.
Nice.
We've built eoscharge.io. So if you ever want to know how much CPU any action on EOS costs, you just go there. And so in times of congestion, that's really important. Right now, it's not getting a lot of hits, but we built that. It's a tool. No one asked us to build it. We saw the opportunity. And so there's 90 groups, up to 90 groups. So, some of them don't do anything, but there's up to 90 groups that are building these things. And besides that, it's very attractive to developers for a number of reasons and some of those reasons are really controversial in the blockchain space. Like being able to update the smart contract.
Mm-hmm.
You can update your smart contract very easily. And what I call this is spectrum immutability. And so before anybody laughs or rolls their eyes at that concept, because I called it asymptotic immutability at one point, but it's the idea that you can have the smart contract be as mutable or immutable as you want.
Mm-hmm.
So you start off with one owner key. So in EOS, you have active and owner. Doesn't matter what they do, but you start off with one owner key. And that one owner key is all it takes to update the smart contract. So if you deploy a token, and that token is given a value because of its utility for whatever reason by the market, and you have a single owner key, that's not a very decentralized token, right? Mm-hmm. But you can also go completely the other end, and you can just null the key. So there's an EOS key that has no mathematical private key counterpart, where essentially you just made that inaccessible forever. So now it's immutable. You can do that too. But what's happening is and you talked about governance, and this is the cool governance stuff that's happening on EOS. It's this middle ground, right? It's not a single owner key. It's not totally nulled out, but there's this decentralized autonomous community that's built in. Mm-hmm. And they're using the very robust, powerful feature of EOS, the permissions, to have MSIGs set up. A really cool example of this is EOS DAC. EOS DAC is a block producer that's basically run by the community. You run as a custodian, and the software will move custodians in and out of the smart contracts that have the keys that actually matter. They can do things based on the votes of the DAC token holders. And so this kind of thing where you're creating these communities where you're not totally encumbered by immutability and lack, like rigidity, things mm-hmm. like lack of agility, but the bar's still set high enough that it's super unlikely that anything were to change.
Yeah.
That isn't approved by the consensus of the group. So this is what EOS is experimenting with. We actually started to build the EOS DAO. We want to take this word DAO back. We want to make it not synonymous with this giant kind of
snafu that happened.
stain. Yeah, this giant stain on the ecosystem because the DAO as an idea is groundbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
And so we actually have a legally registered nonprofit, which and their entire structure will be smart contracts and permissions with keys controlled by humans, elected by token holders. And this nonprofit, their entire goal is for the betterment of EOS. So imagine if the Ethereum Foundation had all their finances on chain. All the people in charge had a key in a smart contract and they were elected.
Mm-hmm.
Would it go a little differently? Would it be perceived a little differently? And it's amazing to me that we have this fantastic technology, blockchain, that can enable these decentralized autonomous communities, yet these organizations that espouse this kind of ideology aren't walking the walk. They're
Not
just
often.
talking.
Absolutely. Right. Absolutely. We look at like ICOs and stuff like this. A lot of them happen with all kinds of secrecy going on. And it's definitely tricky. I think Ethereum's sort of once bitten, twice shy with the DAO, to be honest. But I've seen that there has been some conversation about reigniting that idea. But I think you're absolutely right, though, that it's super important to have this kind of ecosystem driver and something that's transparent and as much transparency as possible, you know, that the truth will set us free, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, and not to say that there isn't anything like what I just described. I mean, you have MakerDAO,
Mm-hmm.
Moloch DAO. You know, there are plenty of awesome examples, and EOS is just adding to the pile. We're trying to build our own DAOs, DACs, what have you, that can just be, because decentralization is kind of chaotic. I mean, I read a proposal from the founder of Gitcoin, who was trying to say we need to figure out how we fund Ethereum development. We're trying to figure that out too, right? So maybe DAO is a part of that, and having and is inflation as allocated by that DAO, which is decentrally controlled by the DAO token holders. Is that how it works? I don't know, but that, to me, that's what governance is. It's trying to establish this self-sustaining community and just make decisions together that doesn't sacrifice the commons. It doesn't sacrifice the good of the blockchain.
I think EOS has really been breaking a lot of ground in a lot of different areas, and I think it's one of the things that gets a lot of people excited about it. But I want to ask you personally, why did you choose to go sort of, you know, all in, so to speak, on EOS, become a block producer and all these things? I mean, what was it about the EOS vision that said, that's the one? I'm not going to be just a Bitcoin miner, or I'm not going to go and, you know, put all my time and energy behind Ethereum. EOS is the chain for me. What was that kind of vision that spoke out to you?
Well, it caught me really quickly. So I'm my career in blockchain is not very long, and by the time I had come in, it was only maybe 7 months later that I got my hands on the EOS white paper, and I had been just reading white papers and watching videos and learning, and what does this mean? What is this potential? How can this change things? And when I read the EOS white paper, it just, what it focused on for me was usable.
Mm-hmm.
It was because I had gone through MetaMask and I had gone through these different products that allowed you to engage with the blockchain, and they were just very rough.
Mm-hmm.
The user experience, the user design, and when it focused on usable and it focused on end user applications, I thought, this is interesting. That's because I wanted to make an impact. And I was actually in the hospital. My daughter had been born the night before, maybe it was a few hours before. I don't know. You don't know what time is anymore when you're doing that thing. I'm actually having a baby in 8 days again. So we're coming up on the being a block producer and a dad is, yeah, anyway.
Full time.
Dad's not what I'm talking about. I kind of lost my train of thought. But my co-founder called me and he's like, hey, you know, we're not seeing any block producers announce themselves. And I was like, yeah, we're not. And he goes, we should probably do this. Like we know what we want to accomplish in the world, and we think that EOS can help us accomplish it. So we're gonna go do this, and that's what we did. But to answer your question, it was usable, and there was an opportunity. There was this open field, and we saw it coming, and we're like, let's run into that field.
Nice.
Carpe EOS.
Carpe EOS.
Yeah.
So I got two final questions for you. The first one is, do you have a personal favorite dApp that you've been using? And I know you don't necessarily want to play favorites forever, maybe, but is there an application that you've been using a lot and that you really like the kind of the feel out and the layout and whatever of it might be?
Yeah, well, I like playing. I mean, so you can download a wallet on EOS, pay for it. So an account costs EOS. So you can buy an account for 99 cents from a wallet you download in the App Store and be playing a dApp in 3 minutes. I've done a little bit of the. I mean, there's a lot of gambling platforms, a lot of casinos on EOS, and I've done a little bit of those, but I, lost that pretty quick. But just like five or six EOS, and I'm like, okay, not doing that again. That was way too easy. No, but I like playing the games. I like playing EOS Nights as one of the first really cool games to play. There's EOS Dota came out. There's a lot of games are being done in Korea and China, and I'm looking forward to playing one that's based on the Seven Kingdoms in China, the Wei, the Wu, the Shu dynasties, and so and these all have NFTs that you can then bring to a marketplace and say like, trade with people and sell to people and buy for people. But I think as far as some really groundbreaking stuff would be Shintai. And Shintai I have used. It was the first leasing market, similar to what Rex does now. Rex actually, ate into Shintai's market share. But what Shintai is doing is they are building a platform where you can lease anything. So leasing an NFT. So imagine you're in a party. I'm talking about gaming a lot, but imagine you're in a raid party, and you're like, okay, we're coming up against this really hard boss. I'm going to go to Shintai and I'm going to lease out this magic sword for a day for this raid that I have coming up, and you can do that. And when you start to look at blockchain assets, being able to lease non-fungible tokens, which could represent any asset, is a groundbreaking thing, in my opinion. So Shintai, and they're actually doing undergoing a token generation event. And disclaimer, I personally do not own any tokens. That's what I wanted to say of the checks token generation event. So Shintai.
Nice. And the final question I have for you is, Block One has been teasing this announcement, and apparently we've got some kind of update on what that announcement might actually be looking like. So what is this kind of secret under the radar project that Block One's been teasing us with for such a while? Do you have some kind of insight on it?
Yeah. So, I mean, just the public stuff. So what I want to see is, I would love to see an OCIO roadmap. I mean, that would be cool. They're the biggest contributor to EOS.io, which is the open source software that EOS is based on, right? You can anybody can take EOS.io and launch a blockchain. So I want to see a roadmap for that. But there was a Bloomberg article that just came out where they very nonchalantly said, "Oh, and they're releasing a social media platform in June," in just a sentence. And I read it and I was like, okay, is anybody gonna say anything about that? No? All right. So they are rumored to be building STEEMIT 2.0 for a very long time. Now the details around this, I do not know. But after reading that article on Bloomberg, that's what I expect.
It would seem to confirm the suspicions that everyone's been having. And remember last time I looked into it, that's kind of the rumors. Yeah, we're looking at a social media platform, potentially, STEEMIT 2.0, which is, I guess, spells some trouble potentially for the original STEEMIT. But nevertheless, I think it'll be very interesting to see that. And that's one thing that I think is really going to take the whole blockchain space really to the next level in a lot of ways, is having some kind of addictive platform. And social media, people love social media, right? If we can get a social media that's got millions of users or 1 million users, the first dApp to 1 million, come on, someone's got to be able to do it.
Yeah, and I hope EOS is that blockchain. Certainly, if we have, if there are millions of users that are going to be daily active, we're going to go. This is why it's very important to be able to establish programs that sustain the health of the blockchain, concentrate on core code developments, because, you know, if we're going to be doing 10,000, 20,000 transactions per second every single day, maintained 24 hours a day, you know, there's some work to do. Mm-hmm. And EOS is fast. It is scalable, and people have their eyes on the prize, but it's just going to take some work to get there. But it looks like it's possible to get there.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been tested yet for that. I mean, realistically, in that real world situation, you don't have that Facebook or Twitter kind of user base running on EOS right now. It can handle it, but it hasn't been done yet. And when it has been done, then you'll deal with whatever the implications of that might be at that time. But, you know, it's about moving through those stages.
Right.
Kevin, very cool stuff. Thank you so much for coming on today and telling everyone about what EOS New York has been doing and about EOS in general. Super interesting as always. So thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.